The story is all about forgiveness. But hold that thought. I don't want to start there. I want to start with Simon and how much I don't like him. Now come on, be honest. Don't you agree? He's kind of a twit. An arrogant, wealthy snob who's playing the whole thing for appearances. He's a guy who's judgmental, self-righteous, and self-absorbed. He's that guy who looks down his nose at everybody else. He's scornful of the woman because of her reputation, and he's scornful of Jesus because he treats the woman with kindness and mercy, not with the disdainful judgment that Simon believes she deserves. It almost seems like that's what Luke wants us to feel, doesn't it? He crafts the story with great care, even sharing Simon's muttering thoughts to himself. And then the punchline. The punchline comes when Jesus asks Simon who he thinks will be more grateful, the one who has been forgiven little or the one who has been forgiven much. And Simon, always eager to show how smart he is, falls right into Jesus' trap. Of course, the one who is shown more mercy will be all the more grateful. And that, Jesus says, is why this woman is so grateful and gracious and blessed. See, the woman has been forgiven much. And in return, this woman, who is actually an intruder to Simon's dinner party, shows Jesus all the hospitality that Simon neglected. As it turns out, she is not Simon's inferior at all. In every way, her actions show her to be superior when it comes to treating Jesus as an honored guest the way he should be. And so then, don't you find Simon's comeuppance just delicious? About time, I say to myself, imagining Simon's face growing red in rage and embarrassment. Until I realize that now I have fallen into the trap as well. I have not been as gracious as this woman has. I have not responded out of mercy and gratitude for all of God's goodness to me. I have been Simon, that small-minded twit, judgmental. And in doing so, I have displayed a level of arrogant self-righteousness that is at least equal to Simon's. You see, I have that streak. On Tuesday, Joe and I participated in this golf outing for pastors. It was sponsored by one of the Chicago area Christian radio stations. It's a nice opportunity for some fellowship with other clergy. And besides, you get a free round of golf at a nice golf course. The day starts just before lunch with a lunch buffet. And the menu choice on those little cards on the table was clearly a hamburger or a grilled chicken sandwich. And I placed the emphasis on or. I don't like to stand in lines, so I waited to the end, kind of waiting till the line went down and everybody else was gone through. And as I watched people coming back to their tables, I noticed that there were quite a few people coming back with both a hamburger and a grilled chicken sandwich. And so then I had this dialogue in my head. Hey, come on, guys, it's one or the other. It's not both. There's not going to be enough for everyone. One sandwich, okay? Now, I know that's a small thing, but it bothered me. See, that's what a life without forgiveness is like. We just can't help it. When we turn our backs on the capacity to give or receive forgiveness, we fall back on the law, except the law not to help somebody, but the law instead to judge them. Ha, Simon says, judging the woman and Jesus. Ha, I say, judging Simon. Ha, I say, judging hungry pastors who take 2 sandwiches. Ha, I say, when my spouse does that one more thing, that one more time. Ha, I say, when the boss comes to the meeting 5 minutes late. What is it that feels so good about judging others? But it doesn't have to be that way. There's a different way. The way of the woman in the story. See, here's the difference between Simon and the woman. It really is all about forgiveness. When you know yourself to be forgiven, you don't have time for judgment anymore. All you can do is be grateful, and you manifest that gratitude by being forgiving with others. And when you forgive others, something pretty remarkable begins to happen. Through your offer of forgiveness, you release a hold not only on the other person, but on the grudge you were holding, on the hunger for delicious judgment that you have been harboring, and on a life dominated by the past. And when you have been forgiven, all that's left is gratitude. And when you forgive others, it opens things up for freedom and possibility. I am delighted to see that this healing power of forgiveness seems to have seeped out of the church and is finding its way into the world. Now, most of you know that I don't watch much TV, but I do read my friends' Facebook posts, the friends who do watch TV, and I read what they say about TV. And it's been kind of uncanny to me how, as they start talking about some of these TV series, like Walking Dead or like The Teen Wolf, and about how again and again they mention how forgiveness emerges as a significant theme in some of these series. A few weeks ago, I read Ann Tyler's novel, A Spool of Blue Thread. It's a story of a family that is full of quirky characters who all rub up against each other's dysfunction and neurosis. But in the end, they are a family. In the end, they can accept each other. In the end, they are able to forgive those deep hurts and resentments that have been crippling them for years. And as much as we look to the law for guidance, as much as we count on love to give us the energy and the excitement to move forward, without forgiveness, nothing is of much use. In the story, we see bountiful grace showered on the woman who knows she has been forgiven, and she can only respond in gratitude. In the death and resurrection of Jesus, we see God's disposition towards us. God is not that judgmental Simon who looks at us and says, "Ha, gotcha." No, God is kind, gracious, merciful, slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love. God does not turn the corners of his mouth down in a frown, but turns them up in a huge cosmic smile. God refuses to allow our sin and brokenness to get in the way of God's wide open arms of invitation and welcome. I wonder what might have happened to Simon if he'd been able to let go of the resentments he harbored toward that woman. It's an interesting question. But I think Luke is less interested in Simon and more interested in us. Maybe what Luke is interested in is that forgiveness become as central in our lives as it is in the story. That we walk away from here not just knowing that God has forgiven us, but that we are called to live in that wide mercy with others. What is there in our life that needs forgiveness? What have we been forgiven lately that creates in us a deep sense of gratitude? Who do we need to forgive to be whole and free again? Now, take care when asking these questions. The last thing I want you to hear me saying is for forgiveness to become another law, like you must forgive or else. Genuine forgiveness of those who have hurt us takes time. It cannot be forced. And so I wonder, who is it this morning who has hurt you, or disappointed you, or slighted you? or discounted you? Is it possible for you to hear the good news of your own forgiveness? To know the joy of your own sins being released? To bask in the gratitude that you do not need to carry around the burden of that guilt anymore? And then to use that joy and gratitude as a springboard to start work at forgiving others? Like I said, it's all about forgiveness. And it's more than this story. It's even more than Luke's gospel. Forgiveness is the whole gospel of Jesus, because it's all about Jesus. The whole Christian life is about Jesus, and it's all about forgiveness.